Madam Mayor, we are live and recording. You can begin whenever you wish.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Welcome everyone to our first meeting in September 3rd, our regular council meeting. Before we begin, just remind everybody that the meeting is being recorded and live streamed to the Township's YouTube channel. And we may at various points have people joining us from within the chambers, but also from on Zoom. So as is always the case, council, please raise your hand and I'll call on you to speak at appropriate times. We'll just begin with calling the roll. We have Deputy Mayor Nelson.
Present.
Councillor Watt.
Present.
Councillor Report.
Present.
Councillor Johnston.
Present.
Of course, myself, Heather Watson. We have quite a staff bench today. We have our clerk, Martina Tate-Hartwig. Good afternoon. Interim CAO, Mike Rutter.
Good afternoon.
Our interim treasurer, Paul Kramer. Our planner, Christina Coulter. And our manager of public works, Jay Condon. Hello. Just remind everybody to turn on those microphones when we are speaking beyond just calling the roll. So with quorum of council attendance, I will call the meeting to order, beginning with the land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that we are on the lands which are part of the 1818 Treaty 20 and the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe bands of the Great Ojibwe Nation. We offer our gratitude to the Ojibwe for their care and knowledge of the lands on which we work, live, and enjoy. May we honor and respect their teaching and our treaty obligations as we grow together. I will just pause for a moment of silent reflection, please. Okay, moving along, is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Hearing nothing, could I ask for a motion to adopt the agenda, please? Councillor Watt, seconded by Councillor Johnston, all in favor? And that motion carries. On to item 6. We have 2 sets of minutes before us, the regular council meeting minutes, as well as our special closed minutes from August 6th and 13th, respectively. Just a motion to approve. Accept those. Councillor Report, Deputy Mayor Nelson, seconds. Is that discussion or?
No.
All in favor? And that motion carries. Moving on to consent. There are 6 items before us on consent. Is there anything that anyone wants to hold for discussion later on in the agenda? Councillor Johnson?
Through the chair, 7.5.
7.5?
Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah.
So we'll then move that over to item, I think it's 12 that we move those over to? No, Madam Clerk?
It is 12.
It is 12.
It will become item 12.5.
12.5. Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Is there anything else that anyone wants to hold for discussion? Seeing nothing, if we get a motion to approve the other reports, 7.1, 2, 3, 4, and 6. Councillor Johnston, and seconded by Councillor Report. All in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you very much. On to delegations, petitions, presentations, or public meetings. We do have one public meeting under the, I was going to say the Planning Act. We still call it the Planning Act?
Yes, we do.
There's been so many changes. So item 8.1, and we just need a motion to open the public meeting. Councillor Watt, thank you. Councillor seconded, all in favor? That motion carries. Over to Ms. Coulter for discussion.
Thank you, Mayor Watson, members of council, staff, and the public. This is the public meeting for our proposed zoning bylaw amendment, file number R-11-24. Council has before them report planning 2024-21 with the recommendation that the planning 2024-21 report dated September 3rd, 2024 regarding file R-1124 Park Hill Storage be received, and that council receive all comments related to file R-11-24, and that the bylaw to enact the amendment be revised and brought back to a future meeting of council once the peer review has been completed to the satisfaction of the township and applicable agencies. EcoView Consulting Services, agent on behalf of the owner 2780811 Ontario Inc., who is Tom Levisiano's Parkhill Storage, has applied to amend the existing zoning on the property known municipally as 192 County Road 4. I believe Jessica Reed from EcoView and Tom Levisiano's are both in attendance virtually today. Notice of the public meeting and complete application was given on August 14th, 2024 by ordinary mail and email. Notices were also posted on the subject property and on the township website. The giving of notice complies with the applicable regulations of the Planning Act. The owner is seeking to expand the existing self-storage facility on the subject property, and a zoning bylaw amendment is required to recognize the site-specific requirements of the proposed development. In addition, the current zoning regulation requires that permitted uses on the site comply with a specific building layout, which is essentially a site plan, illustrated on a separate schedule to the bylaw. The applicant is proposing a site plan that doesn't match with that schedule, and therefore the amendment is required. So the zoning bylaw proposes to delete the existing text of the Special District 79 zone and to replace it with site-specific regulations to capture the existing and proposed development. All other zone provisions of bylaw number 10-1996 as amended will continue to apply. Council has a copy of the draft bylaw attached to the report. A separate application for site plan approval has also been applied for, and since this is required, since the proposal will result in the expansion of an existing commercial use to an area greater than 100 square meters. There were a number of technical reports submitted in support of both the rezoning and the site plan applications. These were all made available on the township website. The technical reports are in the process of being peer reviewed right now. And it's still in the process of receiving that peer review. As of the writing of the report, there were no comments received from members of the public. Comments were received from the following agencies. Enbridge Gas had no objections to the application. Bell Canada doesn't generally comment on zoning bylaw amendments. However, they do comment on site plan approval applications. Therefore, we will circulate them for additional comment at the site plan application stage. Curve Lake First Nation requested copies of any archaeological assessments, and a copy of the archaeological report and record of engagement was provided to Curve Lake on August 18th. Peterborough County Public Works Engineering and Design Division had no objections or comments, provided that their comments from the March 16th, 2023 pre-consultation meeting are addressed as part of the site plan approval. Autonomy Region Conservation Authority had the following. The site is traversed by flooding associated with a tributary of Mead Creek. A cut and fill has been proposed to manage flood storage on the property while removing certain areas of the site to outside of the flood risk. Those areas of the property that are proposed to be kept for flood storage should be zoned to prohibit the future development or site alteration, for example, filling. Provided that the revised floodplain is zoned appropriately, it is the opinion of Autonomy Conservation that the application is consistent with section 3.1 of the provincial policy statement referencing natural hazards. Work also indicated an engineered balance cut and fill will be completed at the site to accommodate the existing flood storage on the property while allowing the proposed expansion to proceed. The effect of this grading will ensure that the new developments are not impacted by flooding and that flood storage capacity is available and will not negatively impact adjacent lands. Based on the information provided, the development does not appear to create new or aggravate existing hazards. Finally, ORCA indicated that their mapping, the lands are subject to Ontario Regulation 41/24, which is their prohibited activities, exemptions, and permits regulation. permits from their agency are required prior to any site grading and or new development taking place on the site. And finally, the subject property is not located within a vulnerable area that is subject to source protection, and significant drinking water threats are not possible, and restricted land use notice is not required. The application was circulated to senior staff on August 14th, and there were no concerns identified. So therefore, based on the comments received from Orca, planning staff are recommended that the bylaw be revised to capture the boundaries of the floodplain and prohibit development and site alteration within the floodplain area. It's recommended that the bylaw be revised and brought back to a future meeting of council once the peer review has been completed to the satisfaction of the township and the applicable agencies. So with that, I will turn it back to you, Mayor Watson, for any questions from the public or council.
Great, thank you very much, Ms. Coulter. Okay, so moving along, we're just looking for any comments or concerns from people in person in the chambers. Is there anybody who wants to speak for or against this application? Seeing nothing, Madam Clerk, is there anybody online who's messaging you or anything that wants to speak either for or against? Seeing nothing, council. Questions, Councilor Ward.
Thank you to you, Mayor Watson. I'm definitely supportive of the application, and the only question I would have at this point is when do we expect the peer review to be completed?
Thank you, through you, Mayor Watson. We believe that the next stage should be within approximately 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council on the file? I will ask a quick question. I don't know who's going to handle this, Ms. Coulter, so I'm going to look at you for now, but you may refer it over. You referenced in your report, specific to Orca's comments, that it is, and I have it in front of me, just jumped off screen, but it fits within section 3.1 of the provincial planning statement or policy statement, PPS. I'm curious just in regards to the timing, because I'm looking at the Orca report, it's dated July 26th. And of course we know in 2 weeks ago, the province finalized that. So where are we at with respect to the timing of this and the requirements for the applicant?
Through you, Mayor Watson, I haven't had an opportunity to thoroughly review the new PPS, but I don't believe there's any change to section 3.1 referencing natural hazards that Orca would be commenting on. So it shouldn't change anything with respect to the new provincial planning statement.
Okay, and as a follow-up, if there is, at what point or will the applicant know that there might be some changes because that might impact their plans going forward and costs and what have you?
Through you, Mayor Watson, the new PPS will be in effect on October 20th. So I believe that if we're not through the process before October 20th, that we will identify any issues related to the new policies.
Understood. Thank you very much. Anything else from council to staff? Okay, seeing nothing, we just need to a motion to close the public meeting. Councilor Johnston, second by Deputy Mayor Nelson, all in favor, and that motion carries. And lastly, we're just looking for a motion to receive the report and all comments. Councilor Report, second by Deputy Mayor Nelson, on comment, question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through. So with this motion, we also want what Christina said about the changes in the draft bylaw to go forward with it. Correct?
Through you, Mayor Watson. Yes, so what will happen is that I will revise the draft bylaw and bring it back forward to council for their consideration once we've completed the peer review. So the revised draft bylaw will include those changes to the floodplain, putting it in a specific zone that will come back to council for review and consideration once the peer review is completed.
Thank you very much. So we've got a motion on the floor, all in favor? And that motion carries, and to Ms. Colby's point, we don't have a bylaw to bring forward at this point, so we'll move on to item 8.2, the presentation from Mr. Doug Sakosha. Welcome, sir, Manager of Engineering Design, County of Peterborough, on the road rationalization study. The floor is yours.
All right, thank you through Mayor Watson. Good afternoon, council, staff, and members of the public. I'd really like to say thank you for having us today to present the Peterborough County Draft Road Transportation Policy. Next slide. So just like first to introduce the team that's here with me today. First up, we have Kyle Darling, he's our supervisor. And we also have Pete Hines, he's our senior project coordinator. Both these gentlemen put a lot of work into this policy. We did a lot of research across Ontario and ultimately a lot of consultation actually with township staff as well to get us here today. Next slide, please. So a bit of background on where this policy came from and why we're here today. In 2022, the county updated our transportation master plan. And really that's a guiding document for Peterborough County to really look at what policies do we need, what projects and what programs we should be focusing on for the medium to long-term future. And this was one of 84 recommendations actually was to develop a road rationalization policy. And really that idea is to set out a protocol that's very clear and concise. So we have a very transparent approach that we look at roads and really the proper jurisdiction across Peterborough County. We want to make sure that it's a consistent approach as we look at these different roads. I do really want to highlight here that something that we've learned through our research across Ontario, OGRA, or Ontario Good Roads, actually has some draft criteria that we look at. But what we did learn is that being an upper tier, the approach of just downloading, you would say, down to the lower tier was not a good approach, and we've actually seen many policies where that failed. And so we took a much different approach where we wanted to collaborate and consult with all of our 8 lower tier townships, and that's why we're here today as well. But really focusing on that a road can be identified by Peterborough County, but it can also actually be identified by the township as well. So there might be a road within the township of Douro-Dummer that you believe maybe that should be a county road. Maybe it's carries more traffic, more volume than anything, and that actually should be in Peterborough County's jurisdiction. So really just want to highlight that this policy, although it's a county policy, it does also, it would go both ways, both from county level as well as the township level. Next slide. So some key principles to certain policy, and that policy is included in the package for council today. But just going through what is a county road? So we wanted to identify what some key principles might be for that. Some of these are fairly intuitive, but we want to put them on paper so really being clear what is a county road. And so obviously primarily it is for the movement of goods, services, and people. Is it capable of being upgraded? So if it's currently a township road and it needs to become a county road, is it feasible? Or the geometry of the road, or curves, the hills, can it be upgraded feasibly? If not, maybe then it's best to stay at the lower tier, that kind of idea. Is it direct? That's something that's very clear. We don't want to see roads not direct, as well as the next bullet around parallel lines. You want to make sure there's no point having 2 county roads adjacent to each other. We want to make sure that it shouldn't be redundant in the future. The last 2 we have there, really, typically a county road complements the provincial highways. So you would see lower tier municipal roads, they would be county roads, and then ultimately feed to your highways. So your highway 7, highway 28, typically they complement the provincial network. And last there, within settlement areas, as we do know, some of our county roads go right through the settlement areas. Some of those can remain as county roads as long as they're primarily serving to move traffic through that area. So again, they're not intended to provide just local service or for communication, they're actually moving traffic through that zone. Slide, please. When we got to the actual policy itself, we wanted to have a methodology or protocol we put in place and come up with a 7-step process, we're going to call it. And actually, we'll dive through this each step in the following slides. Next slide, please. So step number 1, we have this identification of candidate road transfers. I know I mentioned this earlier, but I just want to reiterate it. Those requests can come over from at a county level to look at a road to be transferred to the lower tier township, but again, it can also come from the lower tier township. In this case, Township of Douro-Dummer can identify a road, put it in writing, and have the county that assess that road and say, maybe this should be a county road. So it really is meant to be a 2-way street when we're looking at this policy at a county level. And then the second part I just want to note there is, at a very early step number one, you'll see that the both parties are to be in agreement before we start the process. So, if one of those two parties felt that that road was going to start the process or we're not interested in our policy, that would actually close the door then, and that road would not be transferred. Next slide, please. So step number two, and if you take a look through the policy in front of you, you'll see that this step is technical in nature, and it is meant to be. Really what we wanted to do is we took the Ontario Grid Roads methodology that created this, and we wanted to modify it for a region. So we noted that there were some criteria in there that were maybe a little bit more GTA centric. They applied to this region, so we wanted to customize it, not too much, but enough to make sure it made sense for this region. And so inside of that, you'll see that there's criteria that's on the screen in front of you, and each of those criteria will be assessed when you consider a candidate road, and they're actually evaluated and provided a score. So as an example, we were looking at traffic volume. As traffic volume increases on a road, it actually gets a higher score, and a higher score then ultimately means it's trending towards being a county road. So more traffic on a road, really that should be then a county road over a township road. Now, it's not the only factor. You want to then assess each of these criteria, and then it is the summary of all those that ultimately leads to what we're calling your scoring for that candidate road. Next slide, please. So the reviewing of the scoring results is really the next step, and this is summarized. It's a little bit blurry, but it's summarized in that chart we have there on the left side. And so if we look quickly at it, an overall candidate road that scored less than 4.5, that was currently a county road. What that's telling us is that it's received a low score, and so if it's currently a county road, and we're saying we recommend going to step 5 being it should be transferred. So technical merit is saying it really shouldn't be a county road, it should be a township road. The flip of that, if that was currently already a township road and being assessed and scored less than that 4.5, then we're saying it would remain where it is. So that's really the process, would, in a sense, and we would still report on it, but it's saying that that road should stay as a township road. Controversially to that, it scored over 7, and it was currently a county road, and we were assessing that. We would say that that would remain within Peterborough County's jurisdiction. So it scored high enough to say, that really makes sense to be a county road. And if it was an existing lower tier road and it scored that high, then it's saying to you, yes, you should actually transfer that road from the township to the county. On technical merit, that would make sense. Now in the middle, and this is where working with staff from all 8 townships, we wanted to understand that policies are hard to get everything right the first time. But what we wanted to have is a bit of a gray zone or an area where there's some flexibility to provide, I guess, some idea for staff to be able to weigh in. So we're saying anything between 5 to 6.5. If it's in there, we're saying we're going to actually proceed to step number 4, which we'll go through in a second. But really, that's saying there's other criteria that we may want to assess. So it's not saying no, and it's not saying yes. It says we got to look at this a little further to make sure it makes sense to transfer that road before going down the road transfer. But we can actually go on to step number 4. It's a good segue in. And so what we get here, what we're saying is there should be some other considerations. And so things such as maybe road maintenance. So if we were to transfer this road, does it still support customer service for the residents? Is it going to cost more to maintain that road? Would it, adversely affect, or it is positive for plow routes? So it seems like that if you're saying, hey, we can't put that as technical merit alone, but those are considerations you may want to look at before making that transfer. And so this is just some of the other considerations, but there's a lot of considerations you really want to consider. Another big one we thought is potentially future development. So currently a road may be close to being warranted to be, say, transferred from the township to the county, but on traffic alone didn't quite make it. Well, maybe a big development's coming, it's going to add growth there. And so that then would say, well, let's get ahead of the curve here and let's transfer that road, knowing that development's coming online. Last thing I just want to note here, under other considerations is also for traffic volume. We do know that there's a seasonal influx in the summer. So when we talk traffic volumes, we are looking at spring, summer, fall counts. But if it was to land in the gray zone, something we've noted here is that we could consider if there was a road that had very large or significant growth or change in summer, seasonal influx of whether it be cottagers or tourists, that could be something that could assist in meriting the transfer, right? So if you look at that at say a township club and say, well, no, on that merit alone, there is a large volume there, and you're not getting in the spring or fall, but it makes sense to transfer that to the county with that consideration as well. Next slide, please. So step number 5 is all of regular reporting. And just noting here that county staff will prepare a summary report or a memo that will be shared with the township staff. From that, and this was through our consultation, sometimes staff did say, well, is it possible to have a meeting or consensus meeting to kind of go through it, to agree on those results, and we've added it in policy now. And so in the draft policy, it does say if required, so it's basically saying upon request, we would actually sit down and go through that and say, do we agree on the scoring that we prepared? Initially, it'd still be prepared by Beaver County staff, but ultimately there would be some conversation there to say, you know, did we score this right? Is there factors we didn't consider? So that meeting was that. And then the last thing I do want to note just for council's attention is the last step as well. And so we're saying at a township level, if you know, it was engaged by township staff, this is an opportunity where they could bring it back forward to township council to look for direction there to say, hey, do we want to proceed or not? It's not a mandatory requirement, but it's not. So we left it in there to say that it could be back in front of council if staff felt that was the right time. It will regardless be back in front in 2 steps, we'll see. But this was just maybe at an early stage, it might be the opportunity to get back in front of council before sending dollars for spent or anything like that. That's in there as a step. Next slide, please. So step number 6, we proceeded this far along. This is where we were looking at developing conditions of transfer. And so the infographic you have here on the left is just meant to be an idea of some of the conditions that would be considered. But again, these conditions would be developed in working with the other material works here, so the county and the townships, and this would be on individual each road transfer. So they're all going to be unique in nature, but these are just some things we want to put on paper to say you want to consider. So we're talking about a road transfer. What is the existing condition of the road, right? So you want to go out there and say, what's its current value today? You know, does it need an upgrade? What would the cost of that upgrade be as an example? Further than that might be an implementation strategy. So if it was to get transferred, does it make more sense for, say, Beaver County to upgrade and then transfer? Or does it make more sense to transfer and then to stay today and provide a financial concession instead? Maybe it's, you know, maybe in-house services doing that work, or you can get a better value at a local level. So we're willing to have those conversations, but it's definitely some factors you want to consider on how to do it. And the other thing I do want to highlight here is often I've seen, I guess in my tenure in the county, when these transfers happen, often it's not a standalone road that gets assessed. Often it's one county road or one township road. And so if that was to happen, what we look at through this policy, they would happen at the same time. And so any kind of financial concessions or anything like that would actually be in the net. So we would say, okay, if this road's worth this much and this is this much, what's the net? And which party would pay for that? As opposed to having 2 separate transfers, we would try to put them together to streamline the process. Okay, next slide. And then ultimately step 7, the last step is the implementation, so the actual transfer. And again, just want to highlight here, you'll see that both in blue and green, we would need a resolution from both the county council as well as township council to proceed. So we're really saying at this stage, if we've gotten the information at a county level and they provide a resolution for township council and they did want to proceed and we don't have that, we would not be proceeding to transfer. So that's where I really want to say this policy was created in mind to be very collaborative, because it's providing a lot of opportunity throughout to make sure that it makes sense for both parties. If resolutions are provided for both, we would then engage legal. There is some costs typically associated with that for the transfer itself, but often there's draft survey plans that are required. So legal step would be involved as well, and that's outlined in the policy and he pays for that. Next up is often there would be county bylaws as well as township bylaws. So if you have a roads consolidation bylaw, you have to update that, as well as you actually need a bylaw to transfer any kind of road in general. And then last step we've noted is just any planning documents. So something like grass management plan or official plan, anything where obviously jurisdiction road changes, you would want to update that. So it's built into our policy to direct staff to say any of those overarching master plans or documents should be updated through this process. So you don't forget about adding, say, that road asset or taking it off grass management plan. You want to remember to update those plans as needed. Next slide, please. So as you probably heard me say throughout today, it is meant to be a very collaborative approach. So I just wanted to highlight some of the consultation we had. We did host 2 in-person meetings with staff from all 8 townships. And so really at the April 9th, that was our first meeting. And we presented there, we were really looking at that technical criteria that's identified in the policy. We really wanted to hone in on the technical side and say, does this make sense for the region when we assess the different roads? I do want to note when doing that, we did do some samples as requested upon staff from each township. So if there's some roads they wanted to look at to make sure it made sense, we did run those. That being said, they weren't obviously finalized. We didn't, keep those results by any means, but we did do them just to make sure that really that criteria made sense for a reason. So, if we knew a road should be a county road, well, let's assess it and make sure it lands that way, right? So there is some of that in the background. And then the second meeting we had in June, we really focused on the policy of the protocol itself. So We finalized that criteria, and now we're looking at what is the process, and does it make sense for both parties, both at a county level and at a township level. And I do say we appreciate all the support and feedback we got from staff, and that actually did factor in a lot of changes through that comment period to make sure it works for, like I said, the county as well as all the two townships. Next slide, please. So just quickly wrapping up, next steps. We've got a pretty hefty September agenda, so we'll be in front of all 8 township councils in September, and actually now into early October, we've got moved on one. And then in late October and into potentially early November, we'll be in front of county council. And then after that, if endorsed or adopted by a county council, we would then look to implement it after that. So really early, I'm going to say early the first quarter of 2025, we would start receiving those requests. Both we initiated at county staff level, but also at township level. If there was some road for consideration, we could receive those requests early in the new year. And so in front of council today, we are looking, the council receives the presentation today on the county road rationalization policy, and further, the township of Douro-Dummer endorsed in principle the draft road rationalization policy. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Sequoia. Councilor Johnston.
Through the chair, you got a couple of questions. I is it premature to say that you are looking at any roads right now with the study?
Through Mayor Watson, it would be premature. We did some, but not more as a testing. We haven't looked at any, because we haven't had a policy at county level, so we have not tested any roads yet.
I was involved in one that we done a few years ago. And I don't think our township was too happy at the end of the day. It was TD Road and University Road. So they suggested, that they should take it because it was like a bypass. That was fine. And then they said one of the conditions, we fix it up. So we put a lot of money in it. And then we transferred over to the county. And then in return, we got the University Road. But I think we spent a lot more money than we ever thought we would be. Doing the widening and paving and all the work that had to be done. So I'm just making that comment that it needs to be looked at real close before someone signs off and says, yeah, we'll make the trade, instead of copy themselves out.
Yeah, through Mayor Watson, it's a great point, and that's why through this process, staff of both the county and township would be involved. And so you would definitely, when building those conditions we're talking about, you would want to look at what is the value, what would it cost to upgrade. And keeping in mind, you would have input on those conditions. So if you weren't satisfied with that value or the amount, or the road condition current today, you would be able to influence those issues. Is the best way to put it. So that would be already built in the policy.
Hands up. Is there anyone else for you? Or sorry, Councilor Watt, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, Madam Mayor. Thanks, Doug, for the presentation, and gentlemen, thank you very much for your input into the project. When this process is on the go, would the people on the road be notified of the possible change? And why I ask that is, and I just was, involved with some of your stuff there down Millbrook when we were chatting away and stuff like that. So a road entrance permit, some of the criteria change with county roads, stuff like that. So, but it's still different than township roads. So if somebody had a plan, maybe in the near future, something like that, it'd be nice to know, oh, this is gonna change. I better get my button here and make a change or apply for something before it happens or before it goes back the other way. So is that something that's involved in the process also?
Through Mayor Watson, yeah, it's a great question. And I would say there isn't an exact step on that, but it is naturally built into when you're reporting back to the different council levels. So those are public forums. So we would have that information and you would make the public aware that this is being something to be considered. So again, you may not know in advance that it's happening, but you would definitely know something being discussed. So I would say, yes, it would be public information at that time. That would be.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Anything else on
Yeah. Through you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Doug, for your presentation, and I believe it's a very much needed policy for both the county and the township. Lays it out pretty clear, I think, for both parties on shifting roads. And just from that though, I guess my question is, have you kind of obviously when you run a model like this or that, you kind of have an idea of maybe approximately, and I'll leave it at that, approximately, how many kilometers of road could it mean for a shift for the county? And maybe you know that, maybe you don't.
Yeah, through you, Mayor, it's a great question. Approximately, the transportation master plan did identify 3 or 4 candidate roads. So you're probably in the neighborhood of 20 to 25 kilometers of roadway. I will say in that document, that's public information, there was no roads identified within the Township of Douro-Dummer. But again, this policy is open to saying maybe there is something that at that time we weren't aware of. Township roads, that traffic volume is increasing or other criteria is increased. But through the transportation master plan, it's probably about 20, 25 kilometers of road in total that we would be looking at least assessing. Not saying we would get the numbers yet, but they would at least be assessed through this policy.
Right. Okay, thanks very much for that answer.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any other questions from council? Before I let you off the hook, Doug, I've got a couple of questions. You thankfully emphasize collaboration because that's really important. And I think that as the lower tier kind of little cousin to the county, we don't want to feel like the county is coming to us with the decision to download a responsibility of a road on us and we don't have any say. So I appreciate the collaborative approach that the draft proposal policy looks at. I also appreciate, but I also am concerned about this gray area. You know, I think that it's important that our policies have a layer to allow common sense and for staff to weigh in. But at what point can council come back and weigh in our common sense as, you know, knowing the communities that these roads are running through and the neighborhoods that they may be impacting to upload or download a road, maybe carry a touch group. And I'm just wondering, second to that, the consensus meeting, which can be requested, is that decision in the, you know, the decision tree, is that a staff decision exclusively, or where, I don't have your presentation in front of me, but like the turning points in the road, if you will, where can it come back to council and we request as council to have that consensus meeting for staff to discuss it further if staff haven't? You could weigh in on that, please.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Great questions. We're going to start with the second one, fresh in my mind. And so talking about that, so it's at a county level, we would probably not initiate for staff because we have that direction. But at a township level, we did hear that a consensus meeting would be very helpful to understand the results. So the initial request would be a staff to staff. So we would sit down, make sure that consensus, we all agree on those results. And then in that chart, I don't exactly remember, but the very last step after that is that at that point, the township council could be involved. So that consensus meeting information would be brought forward. If they felt it was necessary, they'd bring it forward to the township council to say, hey, we want you to weigh in on this. We did leave that in there. The reason why we didn't put it mandatory is because we felt that each township may have a different way they want to do things. So we left it to kind of say a township of Douro-Dummer example, then they would guide their staff and say, no, we want that brought forward at a consensus meeting. But we wanted staff first to have the information. So the consensus meeting was meant to be staff, understand it, to agree with it. Then from that would need to bring that forward to the township council. If they didn't agree or they want to weigh, that option is there. At a county level, it's also not mandating that the township has that meeting. We can't do that, but it's giving that flexibility to say, you know, the staff that want to have it, then they would. As for the first question, I kind of forgot the question.
If that's fair, that's fair. In that gray area, where can council kind of weigh in on that gray area discussion, or can we?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Watson, again, great question. So the intent of that, as we said, is it's tough to have a policy and think about it. So we want to have some level of flexibility where we're saying we didn't want to pigeonhole every road into something like that flexibility. So I would say the way the policy is designed is meant to be a staff level at first. But again, keeping in mind that once we do that other consideration, it could be brought back forward in front of the township council to weigh in. So we're talking, I don't know, the chart, we would go through step 4 of considerations. That then leads to the summary report, leads to the consensus meeting, and hopefully back in front of township council. So if you felt that, you know, it's a local issue that you were, you know, you had a good flavor for what should happen there, you would have an opportunity to weigh in before we proceed to the next step.
Thank you for that clarification. And then just as a follow-up, as I understand it, at the most rudimentary sense, we're going to be looking at council making 3 key motions. One is to begin the process. One is to continue the process once it's been scored. And then the third one being to actually enter into an agreement, a transfer agreement, is that correct?
Yeah, through Mayor Watson, that's correct. The only flexibility is that middle one is up to, Township of Douro-Dummer, each township staff. We're saying it's as needed, so that middle step can be cut out if some townships didn't want to do that, but definitely the first and last are in there.
Understood, thank you very much. Council, any other questions before we let Mr. Sakosha and his colleagues carry on? No? Thank you very much, Doug, and also to Mr. Darling and Mr. Hines, I'm sorry, for your work on this and time this evening. Council, we're just looking for a motion, I believe. Deputy Mayor Nelson?
I'd like, I'll make that motion.
You're moving the recommendation
Move the
to,
recommendation, yeah.
in principle, Councilor Johnson second, any discussion on the motion? All in favor? That motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, have a good night.
Thanks, guys.
On to, item 8.3, we have a presentation from Jeanette Levy-Smith, the CAO with, it's a bigger title than CAO, Secretary Treasurer with Township Region Conservation. And whenever you are ready, welcome to Douro-Dummer, welcome to our chambers, and
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's wonderful to be back. Thank you, council, for having me. And also, I'd like to thank the staff, your staff. They've been fantastic in terms of coordinating my presentation here and obviously our ongoing relationship. So I want to acknowledge them. So thank you very much for having me this evening. Throughout the presentation, we attempted to make it a bit interactive. I know that it probably won't all work, but I do encourage you, if at any point there's lots of links, there's some tools, and I'll point them out that you might want to be able to go back and look at our website in terms of things. So lots of information, not just the slide deck. Yeah. So next slide, please. So this is our watershed and our watershed map. Again, it also has the 8 member municipalities. And I do want to just highlight that our conservation lands, we manage over 10,000 hectares of land. We have not added any other lands to the watershed since our last presentation. And so the boundaries remain the same. Thank you. Next slide. This is our board of directors again. And so our board elects a chair and a vice chair at every January at our AGM. And our chair right now is Michael Medcalf from Chantilly, and our vice chair is Kevin Duguay from the city of Peterborough. Next slide, please. So this slide itself could actually be a whole presentation for a couple of days, probably. There's been a lot of changes. And actually since 2018, there have been 38 amendments or changes to the Planning Act. And there have been 13 amendments or changes to the Conservation Authorities Act. So collectively a lot of change, so legislative change, regulatory change over a number of years. And one of the few that are recently being referenced is OREG 4124, that was in April this year, and it did come in with some new regulations for conservation authorities. But also I would like to highlight our conservation land strategy. So this is one of the directives that were out of OREG 686/21. And it really focuses on a high level of the strategy of how we would manage our lands. This is something that all conservation authorities need to do. Where we've taken the approach, we really want to build and develop our management plans for our individual lands. So you will be seeing me in the future, specifically around Warsaw Caves and having a management plan there. So really trying to take that high level strategy more onto the ground where it's going to be more helpful and useful in terms of how we manage the land in a way that is congruent with the community values and wishes in terms of them. So more to come, but right now we're at the strategy level. What I can say is that with all of the cumulative changes and navigating things, it really does come down to us, the authority valuing the value that we have with our relationship with the member municipalities and working with your staff. So I do want to give a bit of a shout out to your staff in terms of all of the work that we've done collaboratively lately. Next slide, please. An opportunity to highlight some of our 2023 in our annual report. So this annual report was prepared in a GIS ARC format. And so again, it's very, very interactive. So if you go onto the website, you can go through the map, and it actually picks up a lot of detail as you can zone in and out of the map in terms of more than just the highlights that I have here. But specifically, if you're in Douro-Dummer, we had 2 spring awareness programs at schools, the Warsaw Public School and also St. Joseph. We also in 2023 had 35 plan reviews, and we issued 96 permits in 2023. So that's the accumulative of our work in 2023. Next slide, please. Our strategic plan, again, is also an interactive document on our website. Our theme in our strategic plan is water. It's something that binds and brings all of our programs and services together as water. It was developed in-house, and we also bridged our old strategic plan with the 2027. So it is an interim strategic plan that allows us to get to when a new board would be in place. We report out quarterly to the board on our performance objectives. We have approximately 70 performance objectives. And so now with our strategic plan, we will also report out to the board on these objectives as well. So if you're interested, the blue wave through, as you go, if you go onto the website, you see it, the blue wave is actually rivers in our watershed. And so there are a number of rivers we've included in our township. So next slide, please. And I do want to highlight through this process, we have a new vision and values for our organization, and really highlighting again our role in and the theme of water, but also our values around people first, professionalism, collaborative, continuous improvement, and being fiscally responsible. Next slide, please. And speaking of water, on to one of our main programs and services. This is called Category 1. Again, remembering the province put all of our programs and services into categories. This is a mandatory category that the province has said for all 36 conservation authorities. And what I really would like to highlight is the regulatory area mapping. So again, this is mapping that is on our website. And so if you have questions from members in your community around whether they're in the floodplain, whether there's any mapping, this tool actually is really helpful. People can go to that tool, put in their address, and it will really bring it right down to that property that they have. And we work very diligently keeping this tool updated. And with the recent regulations changes, that was one of the tools that we needed to keep updated. It is in legislation that we need to do a yearly update as well. So it is a very fantastic tool. It's easy to use, and it does help residents in our watershed understand what might be impacting from a flood management perspective, but also other natural hazards on our properties. Next slide, please. So one of our strategies that I would like to highlight is our climate change strategy. It is about 4 years now that we've had this strategy, and we have a number of activities that we as the authority have identified actions for ourselves to do, and we are preparing a report for our board in the next coming months. But one of those things is that we've just also discovered is that we have a lot of data. We're very rich in data. So certain kinds of data, but very rich in data. And so we were able to partner through with the Peterborough Public Health, and they recently brought a number of partners together, and they produced their vulnerable assessment report. So we provided data such as historic floodplain mapping data, low water, data, our analysis on our, snow survey data, and they were able to use that information in their report. So it is something that, should your Madam Mayor, wish to venture out and collect data on other things, there might be an opportunity for us to provide information at that level, that granular level that's in here in the township. So putting the effort to share the data. Next slide, please. And I'm just going to highlight a few capital campaigns that we have going now. We were very successful with our capital campaign and the community support with our Jackson Creek Trail. We raised over $80,000 for that. And so right now we have a capital campaign kicking off for Hope Mill and a roof replacement that is required. It's a lovely building. It's the Friends of Hope Mill use that building. We have an agreement with them, but the roof is now in need of repair, so it'll be a bit of an engineering feat as well. And next slide. We also have our Hailtown capital campaign going, and we currently raised over $20,000 with our campaign. And so we're looking to do some trail enhancements, tree planting, and some signage. And for those of you that are also art enthusiasts, we have Hailtown will be 100 years actually this year, and he donated the land to the Conservation Authority. But some of those links also talk about Hailtown as an incredible artist in our community. And that's it. I'm happy to, again, the last slide has our website link if you haven't been on the website. So again, lots of information, links, but also tools is what I really try to promote on our website, and our desire to help provide that information to our watershed partners. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Ms. Levy-Smith. Council, any questions for our presenters this afternoon? Councillor Watt?
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much for the presentation. It's always nice to see our local conservation group out here give us an update every year. And I think it's come up before. I did mention to you in the door there. We had a presentation before that said there was about 250,000 people come to the Warsaw Caves in 1 year. That's phenomenal in our little townships that I got. I'm just curious as to whether there's ever been any thought given or any consultation given to our local businesses that could benefit from all those people coming here. Like, maybe at the gate going in and working with them, with some kind of cost, like we've got the sweet bits or, the sweet eats and sweets, whatever, which used to be the butter tart factory that's just out by the door. We've got our garage gas station, convenience store, that type of thing here in the village. And there's probably a few outliers like that maybe people at the caves, oh, I forgot something, it's a quick trip down to Warsaw, but they don't know that it's here per se, because maybe they come in from the north end or something. Just to maybe touch base and say, hey, could we partner with you for a sign saying, these are available down in the village of Warsaw, which is only like 5 minutes down the road, kind of like that. So it's just a thought.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. So excellent, Councillor Watts. We really appreciate that. We actually have some space in our gatehouse as well that's there. And so we were looking at how we might actually utilize that space better. So I wrote down some of your comments. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. We will certainly be following up. But it is very helpful too, because we do have lots of people that come here to visit, right? And they are camping or they're using the day use passes to get in. So it's a good opportunity to do that. So thank you.
And I will just add, if you are looking for better space utilization, as the appointed by Martin County Council on the Peterborough Workforce Economic Development Transition Task Force, of course, county tourism is a big piece as a broader scope. So there may be opportunities to not just promote local operators within our community, but that Tracy Bertram and the team might have some other opportunities to place materials in there. Any other questions from county council on the presentation? Seeing nothing, I do have one, and I apologize to put you on the spot, but Councillor Watt reminded me about Warsaw Caves. Although it is an absolute jewel and we love the visitors who come, we also hear from residents along Caves Road specifically who are concerned about campers and perhaps sort of the conduct that happens at various points in the season, as well as parking and access. And I know we've both been copied on some emails from certain residents. So, you know, I don't need to necessarily brief you on those issues. I'm just curious, you know, is there a broader plan in the future to help address those types of circumstances in the future, whether, you know, complaints and receiving and handling those complaints in the moment, but also maybe better signage enforcement care of those campers as their guests?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. So certainly, we did have some activities, this summer that we hadn't really seen in the past. And so we did implement right away some, specifically at Warsaw Caves, some signage, and we did, work with some of the neighboring land property owners around some signage that also might be suitable for them on their property. And we also did create some communication tools that would be handed out at the gatehouse. It is sometimes difficult to understand if they are campers that have a permit or if they're a day use coming in for the day. But needless to say, there are people that might not fully appreciate the natural environment, but also the proximity in terms of things. So yes, we did implement a number of things, but when we also look at our management plan, we really want to be able to engage the community that's right around it that might be directly impacted on other opportunities that we can in terms of those things as well. So yes to both of those questions, or both of that. Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you very much. Anything else from council? Again, thank you very much for your time and for making the trip to Warsaw to visit us here in the chambers. Just a motion to receive the presentation with thanks. Councillor Watt.
Receive with thanks.
Seconded by Councillor Johnston. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? That motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. It's always lovely to come.
You're always welcome. Okay, moving on, we are in section 9 of the agenda. We have no registration requests for the public comment period. So we move down to section 10, staff reports. And the first report up is 10.1, report and capital project status. Council will just be looking for a motion to receive, but of course, if you have any questions on the report, direct to staff. Councilor Johnston?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to receive.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Nelson, your hand going up to second that, okay? Any discussion? All in favor? That motion carries. Thank you very much. On to item 10.2, deeming bylaw, and that's presented by Ms. Coulter in the front.
Thank you, Mayor Watson, members of council. You have before you report planning 2024-20 with the recommendation that report planning 2024-20 dated September 3rd, 2024 regarding a deeming bylaw for lots 2, 3, and 4, registered plan number 9, being roll numbers 1522 020 004 24200 and 1522 020 004 24300 be received, and that council enact a deeming bylaw pursuant to section 50 sub 4 of the Planning Act so as to deem lots 2, 3, and 4 on registered plan number 9 as not being registered lots within a plan of subdivision, and that the deeming bylaw be passed at the appropriate time during the meeting. Just as an overview for council, the owner of the subject properties submitted a building permit to construct an approximately 16 foot by 16 foot screen room addition to the west of the existing dwelling. During preliminary inquiries with staff and through the permit review process, it was determined that the proposed construction would not meet the minimum interior side yard setback for the applicable zone on the property. since the two lots are still separately conveyable lots, which means that they could be sold separate from each other. They weren't one property. In order to achieve compliance with the zoning bylaw and proceed with the building permit, the owner wishes to merge those two parcels. The owner's legal counsel confirmed that all three properties are owned by Ms. Martin and that the lots on the registered plan of subdivision, that the appropriate way to merge them would be to pass a deeming bylaw in accordance with section 50 sub 4 of the Planning Act. The passing of a deeming bylaw doesn't require a statutory public meeting, but a notice of passing is required, and there is a 20-day period for the owner to give notice should they desire to make representation to council. The approved bylaw is required to be registered at the land registry office, and the owner's legal counsel has advised that they are willing to undertake that process. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Mayor Watson, for any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Coulter. Council, any questions? Councilor Johnson?
Yeah, through the chair, the only question I have is that, say down the road when this property is sold, can they come back and maybe try to get one of those severance back?
Through you, Mayor Watson? Yes, so if they wanted to come forward to separate and create another lot from the combined properties, they would have to come back with a planning application, severance application, yep.
Okay.
Any other questions, Councilor Watt? Okay.
Thank you, through Madam Mayor. So this is the best recommendation, and just kind of popped into my head with Councillor Johnson's question there. So it would be easier just to take a slice off one of the other lots to give them what they need, or would that make the other one too small and not conform?
Correct. Through you, Mayor Watson, that's exactly what would happen. You might be left with a lot that couldn't be developed. So we're acting at the request of the owner in terms of wanting to have all of the lot on a registered plan deemed no longer on that registered plan.
Any other questions from council? Seeing nothing, just looking for a motion. Councilor Report. Oh, what's the motion, sorry?
Through you, Mayor Watson, I'd like to make a motion to receive the report and pass the bylaw.
April for time. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Nelson.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you very much. On to item 10.3, code of conduct complaint, and that's going over to Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The report that's before you is for council's information. A complaint was filed to our integrity commissioner regarding a member of council. The integrity commissioner completed an investigation and their report is dated July 29th, 2024. It is attached in your agenda. Just a little bit of background details. In section 223.2 of the Municipal Act as amended requires that municipalities establish codes of conduct for council and local boards. Council passed bylaw 2018-53 as amended to put that code of conduct in place. A copy of that is available on our website for anyone who may have not seen it. On August 2nd, 2022, Council passed bylaw 2020-34 to appoint Cunningham, Swan, Cardy, Lilly, Bonningham as the Township Integrity Commissioner. Mr. Tony Fleming is the member of the team who provides services of the Integrity Commissioner to the Township. The Integrity Commissioner is appointed as an independent officer who reports directly to Council and is responsible for carrying out any functions in accordance with the Municipal Act as amended and any other functions assigned to Council in an independent manner. So the report that's before you is for information, and as stated before, Mr. Fleming's report is attached to the agenda as well. Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Any questions, comments? Councilor Watt?
Thank you, through Madam Mayor. Yeah, I appreciate the fact that this did happen, but I was also very surprised that it happened because I was at that meeting and in my mind, and I'm just going to speak for myself here, in my mind, things that come up in that meeting were to be like, you bring something up so it gets addressed of how to deal with it, how to deviate from it, how not to respond, that kind of like that. So I was kind of surprised that it was taken that way. And I mean, everybody has their own take on how they perceive somebody's speech or how they say something like that. But I just want to throw it there that I was kind of surprised when I saw this comment. Like, I didn't think that was that bad, and but that, again, that's my perception compared to someone else's, but, I really did think that, you know, you bring up a subject, you mention it and talk about it, so like that, and that's how the discussion gets going on it. So I kind of thought that's where it should have been, but anyway, it ended up the way it is, and it's before council, and I understand the ramifications and what happens, what doesn't happen, but I just wanted to throw that out there as to my perspective.
Fair enough, and since you spoke to it, do you want to make a motion to receive it, or?
I do.
Okay,
Make a motion to receive it, yes.
thank you. Councilor Report.
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion on the motion? All in favor? That motion carries, thank you. On to item 10.4, Office of the Ombudsman letter, Madam Clerk, over to you again.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the report that's before you is regarding a letter that was received by the Office of the Ombudsman dated August 20th, 2024. It's regarding a complaint their office received regarding the township's tax collection processes. The Office of the Ombudsman is tasked under the Ombudsman Act to investigate complaints or issues with a wide variety of public sector entities, including municipalities. The letter provides an overview of the nature of the complaint and provides best practices regarding municipal tax collection, which the township may wish to consider. As stated in the letter, the township was able to find a solution for the interested parties, and staff were commended by the Ombudsman's office for their actions. The recommendations in the letter have been shared with the Finance Department staff for their future development of any policy.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Any questions of staff on this report? Seeing nothing, just looking for a motion. Councilor Report.
Motion to receive.
Thank you. Seconded by Deputy Mayor Nelson. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? That motion also carries. Okay, on to section 11, committee minutes and other reports. We have our committee of the whole meeting minutes of August 13th.
Receive it all.
Thank you, Councilor Watt, for the motion, seconded by Deputy Mayor Nelson. Any discussion? All in favor? That motion carries. Correspondence, we have a number of items. We'll start at the top. 12.1, City of Quinte West, letter regarding Canada Community Building Fund. What would you like to do with that? Councilor Report.
Motion to receive.
Thank you. Seconded. Councilor Watt, any discussion on the motion? All in favor? That motion carries. 12.2, the Ministry of Emergency Preparedness and Response, a letter regarding the community emergency preparedness grant. Motion to do, Councilor Report.
Motion to receive.
And anyone second that? Like, don't everybody join voice now?
Make a motion to receive it.
Okay, so you're seconding that motion?
Seconded.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? And if I can just add before I call the vote, certainly Chief Pedersen is certainly aware of this, and I think that's maybe why there was some hesitation there. Fair enough. All in favor? That motion carries. Thank you. 12.3, the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, release of provincial planning statement 2024. Councilor Report.
Through you, Mayor Watson, although I have not read the entire document because it's pretty lengthy, I'll make a motion to receive.
Thank you. Anyone to second
I will
that?
second it, and if there is anything to come out of it, that, our planner could just come back with a few updates for us, please.
Okay, fair enough. And I think that's a fair segue into a question I was going to ask. I know that this, as I mentioned earlier, was just announced 2 weeks ago. I'm assuming, Ms. Coulter, that staff at both the county and township level are looking at the document in more detail, or maybe it's going to tack as it relates to our official plan. And could you just elaborate on that?
Thank you, through you, Mayor Watson. Yes, so the province in the release of the document has also indicated that they'll be offering some training sessions through September and October for users of the document to understand the differences. I can't speak for the County of Peterborough, although I can say that as part of the official plan technical advisory committee, we've been working with the draft of the document to make recommendations to update the county official plan. So that it is in line with the new proposed provincial planning statement. The document doesn't appear to have much deviation from the document that was released for review on the ERO. So yes, I can prepare a summary of some of the changes that are different from the existing provincial policy statement from 2020 and present that to council.
Thank you very much. Do you need a motion of direction for that? I know we already have a motion before, but Martina says yes, we do.
So,
Okay.
so Madam Mayor, it's already kind of in the motion to have the planner bring back to the council.
Oh, I missed that. Councillor Report and Councillor Waterloo or Councillor Johnson made that motion. You guys are comfortable with that?
Yes,
Yes.
I made it, I seconded it with
Oh.
caveat on it, and
All right.
I'm good with the
I
addition. that I
the addition, yes.
All right, fantastic. Any additional discussion on the motion? All in favor? That motion carries. Thank you. 12.4, Town of South Bruce Peninsula regarding ineligible sources recycling. Councillor Report.
I'd like to make a motion to receive and support this. Essentially what this is manufacturers and other organizations that produce things that come to an end of life. Somebody's going to pay for the recycling of those items. And right now, ineligible sources would be things like churches, hospitals, and municipal buildings. So currently the manufacturers aren't on the hook for those items, and they definitely, I feel that they definitely should be, because these organizations should be able to have those same benefits that a homeowner would have.
Okay, is there someone who will second that? Deputy Mayor Johnson?
Second with the question. Seems to me that maybe your clerk might be able to answer this, but it seems to me that we voted on this before, maybe, to support. But it doesn't matter, I still support the motion and so with support, but I wasn't sure if we were just voting it a second time on the same thing.
Through you, Madam Mayor, there was a letter from another municipality that was also concerned with non-eligible sources. That letter was addressing a separate component of it regarding condominiums and multi-use housing. This is specifically looking at these public sector locations.
Thank you.
So we have a motion that has been made and duly seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? That motion carries. Thank you. And lastly, we have item 12.5, which is a carryover from consent, Administrative for Seniors and Accessibility Ontario Senior Achievement Award nominations. Councillor Johnston, you asked to hold the item and assuming you want to speak to it.
Yeah, to the chair, I'd like this presented to, we don't have too many service groups anymore. But I would like the permission to take it to our Lions at a meeting and our Night of Commerce meeting, where we have a lot of people that participate and help out and most of them are over 65, to come up with an Ontario Senior Achievement Award, because it's going to be done by October 1st. And I say we usually have a send it out to our service groups, but we don't have too many more service groups around. So I'd like to be able to take that to these groups that I belong to.
I think.
Because it's gonna be done by October 1st.
Right. I'm just reviewing the document. I think anybody can make a nomination, whether it's the service club or the municipality. Yeah,
To get a hold of me.
yeah. So certainly,
And if anybody else in the public, when reading these minutes, would submit a name, we would appreciate it.
great. Thank you for that. So a motion to receive that and distribute it among the groups, then I think is what you're probably looking for. Yeah. Second that. Any discussion on the motion? Sorry, so it's moved by Councillor Johnson, second by Councillor Watt. All in favor? That motion carries. Thank you. Okay, on to bylaws. We have two in front of us. 13.1 is to assume certain parcels into the township road system. We should probably do them separately.
Okay, I'll move the first one, please.
Councillor Watt, seconded by Deputy Mayor Nelson. Any discussion? All in favor? That motion carries. And then to follow up on Ms. Coulter's report, bylaw 24-50 to deem lots 2, 3, and 4 on the plan as written. As written.
I'll make a motion to, pass the bylaw.
I'm sorry,
I'll make that motion to pass the
to
bylaw.
pass the bylaw? Deputy Mayor Nelson, you had your hand up also to make that motion.
Yeah.
Councillor Watt, you wanted to speak to it?
I do. Thank you. Ms. Coulter, you did, through you, Madam Mayor, you did say something about a 20-day period in there where the owners can do something or whether the surrounding people can do something. And the second part of the question is, do we pass the bylaw? Because once it's a bylaw, I thought it was kind of a done deal kind of like that, or do we have to pass the bylaw contingent after the 20 days is up?
Thank you through you, Mayor Watson. You can pass the bylaw, we still notify them, they can come back to council. If there's any modifications that they request, we would bring it back to council. And sorry, it's just to the owner of the property.
Okay, any other discussion on the motion? All in favor? That motion carries. Thank you. Moving down the agenda, item 14, reports from previous notices of motion. There are none. Are there any notices of motion this evening? Seeing nothing, moving on to item 16, any announcements? Councilor Report.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Watson. Just wanted to congratulate a team of residents on Stony Lake and the Kawartha Land Trust. Collectively, that group was able to raise $1.325 million in the span of a few months to purchase 10.5 acres of land right along the lakefront, which now joins up with additional land that's in the Kawartha Land Trust. So creating more trail system and ensuring natural habitat for different species of wildlife in the area. So in particular, two constituents that did a considerable amount of work who I've spoken with, and definitely everyone is passionate about it, but in particular, Lois Wallace and Tina Warren have been crucial members of the team working on this. So thank you to them and everyone involved and the Kawartha Land Trust for making this happen.
Thank you for those comments, Councillor Reward. Certainly, raising money in this economic times is challenging from the best of causes, and certainly I heard from those two constituents with some regular updates as their status. So it's great to hear that you were successful in their goal. Any other announcements from council? Councillor Johnston.
Yeah, you got announcements that are already passed, but I'm still gonna bring them up. Number one, we went to the Birchview Cottages Association Birch Trip, and we were received well, and we got a lot of comments, things to discuss down the road, and also our participation in the 50-year of the Douro Park. We had a celebration through our township council, and they were there with some MVP. So I wanted to say thanks for everybody that went there, and it was very well received and a very rewarding piece of practice we had there. And we are going to, for anyone that wasn't there, we are going to be putting a plaque at both park, north and south, representing the council of the day 50 years ago that are motivated to buy this property with the Indian River going right through it. So it's a park that is ongoing year after term after term of councils. They have groomed this, and the township maintains the grass cutting and beautifying it. And we just got a grant a while ago for pickleball, and so the park is growing constantly. And we want to, really thank the council of the day for having the wisdom to buy this property. So I just want to make, even though these things have already been done, I just want to bring to attention to anybody that didn't know about it.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor Johnson. I will also jump on that same message for that event on Sunday. Of course, I got the pleasure of attending and bringing greetings on behalf of council. And certainly I said it there, I'll say it again. Thank you to yourself and Mr. Mead and former Deputy Mayor Carl Hover. I believe there was somebody else I'm forgetting. Mr. Condon, of course, who did the work to do the research, to find, to get in touch with as many descendants of those original council members and those who are still there, and organize a really great heartwarming event. So thank you for your work in doing that, and we really appreciate it, the community appreciates that. Any other announcements?
Thanks for putting me on the spot to speak.
Okay, no other announcements, then, that's it, we just gotta move into closed session, so folks will transition out of the chamber so we can do that, and, we'll carry on.
For 5 minute break, and then close.
Sure, do you want to take a quick 5 minutes?
Get water.